Hello everyone and welcome back to Tribe. Nix, do you know our Philippine presidents?
Well, ano ba naman tanong mo yan?
Di ba ata alam eh?
Mahirap ata, pero if I remember it right, it's Aguinaldo, Quezon, Laurel, Osmeña, sunod, Roxas,
Yes.
Quirino,
Tama.
tapos si Magsaysay, Garcia, Macapagal, Marcos, Aquino, Ramos, Estrada, Arroyo, and syempre, the newly elected president, Noynoy Aquino.
Galing
Diba?
Galing nga. At dahil you were able to answer my question, let's take a tour of the Malacañang Museum, our last stop on this museum journey. Watch this.
The Malacañang Museum, a national treasure that houses a huge collection of memorabilia that dates as early as the Spanish period.
The museum started during the time of President Macapagal in the 1960s. It was established back then. During the time of during that time, palace tours were being held and everything else. And it was mandated to collect and to display the history of the presidency. During martial law, of course, access and tours were limited, if not totally banned. And during the time of President Aquino, the museum was restored. And the palace was converted into a museum. And it was handled by a private foundation. During the time of President Ramos, it was also converted into a museum. But during the time of President Estrada, tours were not allowed. And during the time of President Arroyo, this building was converted into the museum in 2003.
Upon entering the museum, turn right inside the former waiting room of the hall. This houses the pictures of the various governor-generals during the Spanish period. Also in the room are old furniture and books used by the Spaniards. Paintings of the 4 navigators from Spain who changed the way we navigate the waters of the world are also on display. They are Christopher Columbus, Hernando Cortez, Ferdinand Magellan, who circumnavigated the world to reach the Philippines, and Juan Sebastian Elcano, who finished the journey for Magellan when he died at the hands of Lapu-Lapu in Mactan, Cebu. And the old executive secretary's office. These rooms houses the documents, memorabilia, and exchanges between the U.S. and the Philippines during the Commonwealth era. It also included some memorabilia of our national heroes. The Osmeña room was used before as a room where cabinet meetings were held. Up one floor, and one could visit 3 distinct rooms named after 3 great presidents: the Quezon room, the Quirino room, and the Roxas room. The Quezon room contains the presidential desk and office set that were personally used by the presidents themselves when they were in office. This room also includes some of President Manuel L. Quezon's memorabilia. This used to be the executive office of the president, and it was President Quezon himself who used it first. The Quirino room, more formerly known as the Council of the State room, is a conference room used in the earlier period. But during the Marcos era, this room was used by President Ferdinand Marcos as his studio where he would announce his most famous speech declaring martial law. The Roxas room, which contains various memorabilia and keepsakes of President Manuel Roxas, was the control room of the said studio as these rooms were joined. Later on, it was restored to its original state. Exiting these rooms, one would be welcomed to the Grand Library of the Kalayaan Hall that houses the book collection of President Ferdinand Marcos, the busts of the presidents, and the clothes they wore during the time they were in office. The uniform of President Emilio Aguinaldo, the tux worn by President Manuel L. Quezon, and some other personal effects. The suit worn by President Jose Laurel and other personal items. In other barongs and suits and dresses worn by our presidents. Library is the doorway that leads to the balcony where President Ferdinand Marcos waved goodbye to his loyal followers before heading to Hawaii. 2 more rooms on the second floor is dedicated to the late President Aquino, and the room dedicated to the former vice presidents of the country. The museum houses the biggest collection of memorabilia and books that belong to our presidents. How do they maintain all these, and how can one go there?
First, museum items should not be touched. That's our first rule, because any dirt, any oil from the skin of anyone would contribute to the deterioration of the item. So we don't allow them to touch anything. The museum is open from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock every day. The first tour starts at 9. The last tour usually starts at 3 o'clock. But everything is by appointment since we have security considerations. You have to submit to us a letter of request at least 7 working days in advance, and then we process it for you with the Presidential Security Group, and then you can follow up your request from time to time, and then we'll inform you if your request has been approved.
The Malacañang Museum has taught us not only a great deal when it comes to history, it has also taught us to value our national treasure, which will continue to remain in the hearts and souls of every Filipino, both young and old alike.